In Sudan, the army and protest leaders are signing a landmark deal outlining a transition to civilian rule. That expected signing to come after months of deadly unrest. Our special envoy has the latest. Thousands of teachers march in Hong Kong, becoming the latest group to join the protest movement. It's one of several demonstrations planned for the 11th consecutive weekend of mass rallies. And a wildlife watchdog meets to discuss the protection of endangered species. Elephants and sharks are at the top of this year's agenda. Hi, and thanks for tuning into France 24. I'm Claire Rush. We begin in Hong Kong, where thousands of teachers marched this Saturday. This just one day after thousands of students demonstrated in central Hong Kong. The rallies have launched the 11th consecutive weekend of mass protests in the semi-autonomous territory. Tensions are running high amid mounting concerns over China's next move. But some pro-Beijing protesters also took to the streets on Saturday. Here's what they told our correspondent.
I want to support the Hong Kong police and to support the people of Hong Kong who truly love Hong Kong, and the students who are causing all the trouble do not represent the people of Hong Kong.
I think democracy is not a good thing. We shouldn't have democracy. Why should we have democracy? Because you look at the Beijing government, they don't have democracy, but they're doing a good job. The economy is good, is going a good way. So why should we have democracy?
Now, France 24's Anke Ulia has more on the rival pro-democracy protests that also took place on Saturday.
Protect the next generation. That's the rallying cry that's got thousands of teachers marching in Hong Kong this weekend. They braved the rain to show protesters, many of whom are students, that they are not alone.
I can't really stand seeing them standing at the front line, saving our city for us. I think that's not safe. That's not fair. They are just a student.
I'm very worried about their physical safety, because now the police seems to be beating people indiscriminately, which as a Hong Kong citizen, I think it's hard to accept.
It's a key moment for the movement. Escalating violence has fueled opposition to the pro-democracy cause and deepened divisions in Hong Kong. Thousands gathered in a counter-protest to show their support of China, as a giant screen replayed scenes of protesters clashing with police. For these Hong Kongers, democracy is not the answer.
Democracy is not a good thing. We shouldn't have democracy. Why should we have democracy? Because you look at the Beijing government, they don't have democracy, but they're doing a good job. The economy is good, is going a good way. So why should we have democracy?
And across the border in Shenzhen, Chinese police are still holding drills, maintaining fears that they could be sent in to suppress the protests.
Now, authorities in Indian-administered Kashmir are partially lifting their lockdown there. Local officials say they've begun restoring telephone landlines and that restrictions on movement are set to be eased after a nearly 2-week security clampdown in the disputed region. The developments come one day after a UN Security Council meeting on Indian-administered Kashmir, following New Delhi's decision to revoke the autonomy of its only Muslim-majority state. Here's what India's ambassador to the UN had to say at the meeting.
We don't need international busybodies to try and tell us how to run our lives. We are 1 billion+ people. We know how to do, and a commitment to democracy, unlike those who are now trying to speak to me, have no, whose experience is extremely limited. We have vast experience. We will fulfill our goals. We are committed to addressing the difficulties some of our people have. And please give us the time and space to address these. Thank you very much.
And now we head to Sudan, where military rulers and protest leaders have signed a landmark deal outlining a transition to civilian rule. The Sudanese hope the signing will bring democracy and peace after months of deadly unrest. Clément Bonnereau explains what's in this new deal.
With Saturday's signing of a historic power-sharing deal, Sudan's military rulers and protest leaders are hoping to turn a bloody page of the country's history. The deal, which was formally agreed earlier this month, kicked off a 3-year transition period under which Sudan is to be run by a so-called sovereign council. The new body will be composed of 6 civilians and 5 generals. It will be headed by a member of the military for the first 21 months, before the leadership rotates to a civilian for the following 18 months. Its members will be officially unveiled on Sunday. A cabinet is also to be formed on the 28th of August, with a new prime minister named as early as next week. The deal makes clear the new government will be dominated by civilians. However, the security and defence ministers are to be chosen by military members of the council. A 300-member legislative assembly is also to be formed within the next 3 months. It will be at least 40% female, reflecting the significant role played by women in the protest movement. If all goes to plan, elections will be held after the 39-month transition period that began on the 4th of August, paving the way for what many hope will be full democracy in Sudan.
Now, for more on this story, we cross now to regional correspondent Julia Steers in the capital, Khartoum. Now, Julia, you're at the signing ceremony. What's it like there, and who's in attendance?
Well, over the course of the last hour, we've seen officials from the African Union and many heads of state from the region, including the president of Kenya, President Kenyatta, President Salva Kiir of South Sudan, the president of Central Africa, and President Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia. And that's particularly significant because Ethiopia played a huge role in getting the two parties to the table to negotiate this deal. And Abiy Ahmed is sitting on the stage as the deal is being signed. It's being signed by the head of the Forces for Freedom and Change, as well as General Hemeti, who is the number 2 on the Military Transitional Council. He's signing the agreement as the head of the Transitional Council. General Al-Burhan is looking on, and the regional heads of state are all on the stage. And it really goes to show just how significant this deal is for stability in the region.
Now, what are the next steps that must be taken after this signing to ensure that the 3-year transition goes smoothly?
Well, as you can hear behind me, there's a lot of jubilation, a lot of excitement about the deal. So certainly a lot of optimism here in Khartoum today, but as you said, a lot of work to be done going forward. So next steps include the appointment of a prime minister, the establishment of a judiciary, the establishment of a parliament, and really the establishment of all of the structures of a functioning democracy, of institutions that can be in place in order to ensure that transparent elections can be held in 2022, and in order to ensure that the Sovereign Council has the buy-in of people, many of whom are very skeptical that there are members of Omar al-Bashir's regime still in power on that Sovereign Council. So for now, it's a celebration. In the days and weeks ahead, a lot of work to be done.
All right, thanks for the update on that excitement. Julia Steers, our regional correspondent in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. Now, in other world news, a wildlife watchdog summit is set to meet this Saturday in Geneva. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species regulates the global trade of animal and plant species at risk of extinction around the world, with sharks and elephants topping this year's agenda. The meeting comes amid warnings that many species are disappearing sooner than predicted. Valerie DeKemp.
The fate of dozens of endangered species will be decided in this conference center in Geneva. Over the course of 2 weeks, 183 member states are set to discuss the tightening of rules that govern the trade of plants and animals, as extinction is looming for many of them. The treaty already covers 36,000 species, and this year the plight of African elephants is expected to dominate discussions.
In terms of proposals, we have 3 proposals referring to African elephants. 2 of them are coming from southern African countries, and they seek to liberate or to open up trade in ivory.
Some countries argue that the regulated sale of ivory would satisfy a demand from Asia that is fueling illegal poaching. Sharks will also be high on the agenda. Coveted for their highly valuable fins, some 100 million are fished every year. Conservationists warn that the ocean predator is slowly disappearing.
If no more fishing, no more mortalities, and no more sharks were to be killed in the North Atlantic from today, scientists estimate it will be 2070 until the population recovers even to kind of a base level where fishing would be advisable again. It's kind of terrifying.
The meeting follows warnings of the rapid decline of endangered animals. Earlier this year, a UN report found that 1 million species are being pushed to the brink of extinction.
In Jakarta, rising sea levels are threatening to submerge the city. Some experts estimate that a third of the Indonesian capital could be completely underwater by 2050. Our colleagues at France 3 have this report with Mario Sofos.
Battered by waves, this abandoned mosque is the symbol of a struggle that's already been lost. Jakarta is sinking, with some districts already 4 meters below sea level. The ground floor of this building has been completely submerged in mud. Residents are in shock.
I have seen the water gradually rising over the years. Now it's underneath my house, so I'm living under sea level.
The city is sinking under the weight of its buildings. Water is flooding in from all sides, a phenomenon that's being exacerbated by global warming. The authorities have decided to construct kilometres of seawall to combat the rising water level. Yet it's not a sustainable solution, and if more serious action isn't taken, a third of the city could disappear by 2050. The Indonesian government has just made a very radical decision, pledging to move the capital to the neighbouring island of Borneo.
We're doing this in the name of economic equality and justice. It's the vision of a developed Indonesia.
It's a project that's looking towards the future, but one that sounds somewhat like an admission of defeat. There are currently no plans for saving Jakarta from being submerged, nor for rehousing its some 10 million residents.
And finally, American actor Peter Fonda died on Friday at age 79. The star of the cult classic Easy Rider passed away at his home in Los Angeles following a battle with lung cancer. Fonda was part of a well-known family in Hollywood, brother to Jane Fonda, and son of actor Henry Fonda. France 24's Simon Harding takes a look back on his life.
Perched on his Harley-Davidson motorbike, Henry Fonda was a symbol of America's hippie movement, a counterculture poster boy in his youth, starring in Easy Rider, the classic road movie that embodied 1960s rebellion, in which two bikers go in search of America.
Growing up, watching movies like Easy Rider really inspired me to take up the motorcycle lifestyle and just, almost in a way following his footsteps, seeking freedom and maybe being seen as an outcast.
Peter Fonda also produced and co-wrote the 1969 hit, earning an Oscar nomination for the script. He began his career as a stage actor on Broadway in his native New York, before transitioning to film and stepping out of the shadow cast by his father, Henry Fonda, a Hollywood legend.
I believe he had his own persona. He had to rise out of his father's image, Henry Fonda, and he became his own man in a different way entirely.
Following his death, Peter Fonda's big sister Jane paid tribute to him.
I am very sad. He was my sweethearted baby brother, the talker of the family. I have had beautiful alone time with him these last days. He went out laughing.
His death comes on the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, and he'll be remembered as an icon of the counterculture movement, symbolized by the festival.
That's all from me for now, but for more news and the top headlines that France 24 is covering at this hour, take a look at our website, france24.com. We've got our top story there on the landmark deal that's just been signed between Sudan's military and protest leaders, outlining a transition to civilian rule. Our website is available in 4 languages: English, French, Arabic, and Spanish. More news is coming up next. Stay tuned.